Good morning. Today is September 12th, 2020. Sorry. I didn't fix myself up for my video, I'm sorry. But I want to talk a little bit for a minute about things that happen pretty quickly when you get sick with COVID. For people who, like myself, are having some other kind of reaction with other health issues going on. I know there's still a lot of people who aren't going to see that this is a big deal or how serious it really is, but that's okay. I pray that they don't have to handle it, firsthand. I hope that they don't get it. But there are going to be a lot of people who are just not going to get it, and I know that, and I can only help those that want the information and that we can try to help. And now that I can actually concentrate a little bit, my head is still a little foggy and comes and goes, but I'm trying to begin to piece together my timeline and things that happened, just so that you guys can be aware of how quickly this condition can change, okay? Because that's the thing that's kind of shocking doctors right now, is how drastically fast your condition downgrades. It's not like a typical person who goes into emergency or ICU with pneumonia or double pneumonia, because the chemical reaction that starts to happen in our lungs, and they're now starting to think even your whole circulatory system in general may be being affected the same way now, is that it thickens the liquid that's getting in your chest, and so no amount of oxygen they put you on is enough to break through what's happening. It's thickening up like a gel. And I've now heard accounts of nurses and doctors that I've been communicating with all over the place since this journey started, that they didn't understand at the beginning what was happening either, because as they were having to place people on a ventilator, they were having to suction out this very thick congealed jelly that they were pulling out of the lungs and stuff. And it was shocking them. They didn't know what they were seeing. And unfortunately, when you're an acute care worker, you're in the moment, you're trying to do anything and everything at that moment to save that patient's life. You don't have time to pull up your phone and research and find out what this crap you're pulling out of these patients might be. You just do what you think you have to do, and you help clear their lungs, and you try to help them survive. Then your team of doctors, your internists, for me, luckily it was the infectious disease doctor and the lung doctor and everybody that was involved in my team at Reed Hospital in Richmond, Indiana, who by divine intervention all had a piece of knowledge that came together at the very right moment, at the very right time for me. I was one of the very lucky and very blessed people to have the people who were there, who took care of me when they took care of me. And I do believe in divine intervention, and I know that all of those people with that knowledge were put together there at that time and place for a reason. And I'm not gonna waste this opportunity to help them, help you, help anybody we can. COVID is going to have some very serious long-term health effects for a lot of us. And none of the medical community can even begin to tell us what that is yet. We're going to be facing a whole gamut of problems. There are a lot of people like myself who, right now, all they're doing is keeping us on a vitamin regimen and sending some people home with oxygen. They're also, I don't feel the need for oxygen, but they have now prescribed me inhalers that I have to keep with me because of any residual that could still be in my chest could cause the chemical reaction to happen again immediately. So I'm going to have to be very careful. I can't mess around. If I get a fever, if I get any kind of symptoms, I have to immediately get in to see somebody. I can't play tough no more. I want you people to know that when you're somebody like me and you deal with and you live with chronic pain and chronic illness on a regular basis anyway, when you get sick, you try to tough out a lot of shit. You try to deal. And you think it's just one more thing you gotta handle and you gotta deal with. Unfortunately, sometimes being strong is the problem. I waited too long. I went to ER. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a timeline. I kind of started to put together a little bit of a timeline. I really, I deal with a lot of typical sinus stuff anyway. So at the beginning and the onset of everything, I just thought it was allergies. I didn't have any fever, just a little bit of snuffles, stuffy, normal kind of seeming stuff. On Monday, August 24th, my husband, because everywhere you go just about is checking temperatures, went to go to work and they checked his temperature. He had a low-grade fever, and so they recommended he get tested, just because that's what they tell people. They don't know what to tell them. And they're trying to protect, their employees. So he went on that Monday and got tested. Really no symptoms other than no low-grade fever. By later that afternoon, I started not feeling great. Just, again, chalked it up to kind of sinuses, whatever. By later that night, I felt I was getting a fever. I didn't say anything. Didn't want to deal with it, I guess. The next morning, I got up and had a high fever. And I thought, oh, I'm going to get tested. I'm going to go get tested just in case, So I and my 16-year-old daughter went and got tested that day. By the next day, and I'm talking mild symptoms, you guys, other than my low-grade fever, which I came home and took Tylenol for, I wouldn't have thought twice. By the August 26th, I was already sick. I was real sick. And I didn't know it. I got up. I could barely move around. My head felt like it was going to split right off my shoulders. And all I kept thinking was, I got to pee. So I tried, my husband helped me, get me to the bathroom. Thank God that he was even home, because they didn't want him to come back till he had his test result. If he hadn't been home, I don't know what would have happened. But he helped get me into the bathroom. And I managed to sit down on the side of the toilet. And as soon as he walked out of the bathroom to leave me for a second, I blacked out. I passed out, fell over on our tub. Thank God I didn't get hurt, but I could have died sitting right there by myself. I would have quit breathing. And it was because of what was happening in my lungs. And my CO2 had dropped dangerously, obviously. And so when he realized I wasn't answering him and he ran back in the bathroom, he had to slap me a few times to get me come to, shaking me. He was scared to death. And we called 911. And I went to the local ER, the Preble ER, by ambulance. By the time that, luckily it was my stepson and my nephew who run the ambulance here where we live. We live in a small town, which was a little comforting to me to be able to at least have some family with me because I was scared. We went to the ER. I did full chest x-ray and everything. Came back in and told me that I had pneumonia in my left lung, and that since I didn't have my COVID results back yet, I could presume they were positive based on my symptoms, and that my O2 had gone back up, so they put me on a Z-Pack and said that if the pneumonia was viral because of COVID, the Z-Pack wouldn't do anything, but it wouldn't hurt me either. If it was bacterial, something other than COVID, that it would help with it. So basically discharged me with pneumonia and said, in their opinion, that doctor's opinion, there is no treatment for COVID if I had trouble breathing or anything else come back. So I went home. Scared, but at least okay, I have some antibiotics, the Z-Pack to, help with my lungs, and hopefully that shit won't happen again. We'll be good. We spent the next whole week, a whole week in time just gone for me. I have no much recollection other than I was dehydrating quickly. I couldn't eat. I was afraid to drink because I didn't want to have to get up and go to the bathroom. If I had to get up and go to the bathroom, when I did, I was dizzy. I couldn't hardly move around. My head hurt so bad I couldn't hardly stand it. My body ached top to bottom. I don't think there wasn't a thing on me that didn't hurt. But again, I'm a chronic pain survivor, so, I just kept taking every little thing with a grain of salt. Until September 1st. Well, the night before, we had been dealing with 102 degree fevers. We'd get it to break a little bit with, I was sitting here with ice packs, taking, one of the things I did learn, I was told, was that for whatever reason, ibuprofen was aggravating COVID, and so I just took Tylenol and aspirin to try to control the fevers. So I was taking it religiously. The lowest we could get my temp to go was 98. I normally run like 96, 97. So to hit 98.9, we were like celebrating that, we were finally breaking this fever. But the worst would come, seemed like at nighttime. Like the fever would come back raging 10 times worse than it was. And on the 27th of August, during that time while I was real sick, my positive results were sent to me for COVID-19, which by that point, I think we already knew. Luckily, at that time, my husband's test had come back negative. My daughter's test had come back negative. And my 31-year-old son who lives with us, his test, he hadn't even been tested yet. He didn't have any symptoms or anything. And he, because of his work schedule and everything, he pretty much hadn't been around too often anyway. So with no symptoms, we weren't concerned. Little did I know that everything I was experiencing, you know, they want to talk about symptoms and stuff, and you keep seeing all this stuff online and on these ads on TV and everything, and what you hear. And they talk about shortness of breath, and let me tell you, I want to explain. It was not shortness of breath like you think. I wasn't gasping for air like I couldn't breathe. My chest would start to get a little bit tight, but it wasn't like I was struggling. It was a kind of strange sensation in the fact that even I, based on what I had heard on symptoms and everything else, thought, you know, okay, well, when people are really struggling to breathe, they're struggling to breathe, like gasping for air and clutching their chest. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like that at all. It was just like my chest was tight. It was like somebody was hugging me too hard. And that's one of the first big misnomers I want people to understand, is that it's not like I was sitting here, you know, it wasn't like that at all. Not once. Not even when I was in the hospital and they were about to put me on a ventilator. It wasn't like that. The problem was that the O2 couldn't circulate through my system. It's not circulating through your brain. It's not circulating through your blood. It obviously wasn't circulating through my lungs the way it's supposed to. And so it's not this drastic gasping for breath that you think you or your COVID patient is going to have. It's not like that. And there's been people commenting on my video, my goodbye video to my family, that I wasn't gasping for air and I was faking it because I couldn't talk if I couldn't breathe. And they have no clue. They have absolutely zero clue of what it was like to be in that moment and know your oxygen's dropping, and it's not like you can take a deep breath in and get that oxygen back. I couldn't do that. They had my oxygen at 100% just to keep my O2 at 80% to keep me alive at that moment, and it was going fast. So for those who think that video is fake, I pray you never have to experience that feeling. I pray you never, ever have to watch a loved one experience that feeling. That was some of the scariest shit I've ever lived through. And there are no words that can describe to any single person until you've lived it. You'll just never know. And I feel sorry for you. I really do. Oh, back on track. On September 1st, and what's today? The 12th. I've lost so many days, it's crazy. On September 1st, I woke up and I immediately knew something was drastically different that day. Every ounce of my being told me I needed medical help that day. This was beyond anything, and I really think my body was shutting down, and I knew I was on my deathbed. There's no scarier thought than to have such a awareness that you need medical help. And I didn't even know if they would be able to help me, but I knew I needed something, and I knew I couldn't sit here and die in front of my husband and my daughter and my son. So I had him call 911. I couldn't get up. I couldn't move. Every time I moved, I felt like everything just was going black. And I knew I was going to pass out again. And I just didn't want to die here in front of him. So he called the squad and got the boys down here. And as professional as my nephew and my son are, it was scary to watch my son know I was in trouble. As soon as they saw me, they knew I was in serious medical trouble. And, nothing against my friends who work for Kettering or probably are, but I wasn't willing to go back there to a doctor who had an attitude that there is no treatment for COVID. And so even though in the past I'd had issues with Reed, I knew I needed to be at Reed Hospital. Intuition told me I needed to go to Reed. Thank God I did, because they saved my life. The time that the boys picked me up to take me in the ambulance, my O2 was at 80%. Had they not picked me up when I did, I probably would have immediately ended up on a vent as soon as I went in the hospital. I was one of the lucky ones, and God's given me a voice and an ability to use what happened to me and try to help people, and I'm gonna do that. And trust you guys when people posting shit like, oh well, just gotta go fund me, and look, we lost 4 incomes in one day because we got sick with COVID. I'm not out trying to get rich. I'm just trying to make sure a roof is over our head until we can all be able to get back to school and work. And for me, I don't know if or when that will ever be. But, when they quarantine somebody in your house and everybody starts cycle through testing positive, the only one that hasn't is my husband. And of course, science can't explain that either. They don't know. He's lucky. My son and my daughter both tested positive at different periods. My son didn't even test positive until after I was already hospitalized for the week. So it's crazy. It's crazy how it affects everybody different. Every single person in our own household has been affected differently. My family, my sister-in-law did not start that GoFundMe as any kind of scam. We live paycheck to paycheck, and we're just trying to ease that stress of making sure that our car payments are made, our house payments made. We've had an amazing community of friends who come together and brought food and taking care of our basic needs and our cleaning supply needs, so we don't need for anything as far as that goes. We're okay, and God's got us, and He's going to continue to get us, and I have every faith in that. But I want people to know this journey is not about making money, getting rich, nothing. I'm about pulling together this information that these doctors have learned and sharing it and keeping my friends and my family and my loved ones safe, and educating those who want to know to keep themselves safe. Some of you know me, some of you don't. some of you don't care to, and I'm okay with that. And some of you have your opinions, and as wrong as I think they are, that's okay. They're your opinions. They're like assholes. Everybody's got one. I'm okay with that. I just want to help those that want help. That's all. And that's it for now. My videos are getting kind of lengthy and long now that I can gather thoughts. But I feel like it's important. And I've had a lot of local people reach out to me who have been battling this. And we're compiling information. And we're saving lives. And we're going to continue to do it. God's put me on a crusade I'm not going to stop doing. I'm going to help people. I think that's probably what my path in life was supposed to be all along, and who knew, right? I love y'all. I hope you have a blessed day, and I pray for every one of you who's going through this right now. I know how hard it is. I know how emotionally devastating it is, financially, physically. The toll is hard. It's hard. But the only way we're going to do it is sticking together and trying to help each other and being decent, human American people who, you know, come on. I keep hearing people say, oh, I'm an American, it's my rights, I don't have to worry about your health. And to me, being American and being just a decent human being in general, I don't care what country you're from or where you're from, being a decent human being means caring about people around you. I hope you all have a blessed day.